everybody, I'm Dina. Welcome to my channel. On my channel, I like to take some of my favorite comfort foods and make them into healthier vegan versions. And today I've got a super special recipe that is a favorite of mine and a favorite of millions of people who love Mexican food. And that is a warm and hearty pozole soup. Now, if you've never had pozole, it's usually not all that healthy for you. So we're going to try to do a little bit better. We're going to keep it vegan and keep it absolutely delicious. So I have come down with a little bit of a cold in the last week. So on this dreary fall day, I thought this soup sounded amazing. It's one of my favorite soups, and it's nice and hearty and rich, and I'm going to make a big pot of it so that I can enjoy it for meal prep throughout the week too. But what I'm starting with is just some black beans that I soaked overnight, and I just want to get these going on the stove while I prep the other ingredients. This is not a hard recipe, it's very easy, but it's very delicious and it's very authentic to Mexican cuisine. It's going to hit all of those flavor notes that you really love in a good hearty Mexican meal. So I'll be making my soup today, and I'll be making some sourdough cilantro flatbreads. Traditionally, you would serve this with tortillas, either flour or corn chips. But I have some sourdough starter already going, and I had planned on meal prepping flatbreads anyway. So I'm just going to go with that and make some delicious cilantro lime sourdough to go with my soup. So to start the beans, I'm cooking mine on the stove. You can certainly just cook them in the Instapot or even start with canned beans. And I'm meal prepping enough. I have about 2 cups of beans that I have soaked overnight. And I'm meal prepping enough to have for my soup plus a couple other meals during the week. And into my beans, I'm just adding a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and half a teaspoon of baking soda. Now, if you've never added baking soda to your beans, the reason I do this is because it makes them nice and soft and tender. And I'm just going to cover my beans with about 1 inch of water on top, and the black beans will probably take about 30 to 45 minutes to cook until they're just tender, not mushy, just tender. Since we'll be cooking them again in the soup and whatever else I meal prep during the week, I don't need to cook them down too much because they'll cook again. But just until tender, not mushy. To get that rich, authentic flavor in your pozole, you just need a few ingredients. Not expensive, pretty easy to find in your regular grocery store now, and that is dried chilies. Now you can use pretty much any type of dried chili. I would recommend the California, the hot New Mexico chilies, or dried guajillo chilies. Any of those work. Dried ancho chilies also work. The heat level is going to be a little bit different on all of them. And I just have a mixture here of about 6. And I have a couple of dried ancho chilies, a couple of dried New Mexico chilies, and a couple of these dried California chilies. You could also throw in a little hot dried Thai chili or a little hot red pepper. Actually, I have more than 6 here. And this is where you want to be careful. You're going to want to toast your chilies first before they go in the pot. So I just have laid them directly on the burner, and we're just going to toast them up. And our other ingredients that are going in to make the sauce are pretty simple. I have half an onion, and I'm going to reserve the other half an onion for making the soup. So we just want to get a little bit of the toast on there. It smells amazing, but don't breathe that in. Your whole house will smell really good. Okay, and I'm also going in with 4 whole cloves of garlic. Now, you'll notice I didn't peel that or anything. You don't need to, that's not necessary. We're just going to boil this all down for flavor, and we're going to peel it and strain it out later. Okay, let me get these before it's out of control. Now, be careful with this part. It's hot, obviously. And don't skip the step of toasting your chilies. It just gives such a unique flavor to the soup. And it doesn't take long. You saw it just took, a few seconds aside and they'll be nice and toasty. And if you have a gas flame, this works even better. Just like 1 or 2 seconds aside and you have a nice toasted chili pepper. But just be careful. Don't burn yourself and don't catch the kitchen on fire. Okay, so those are done. I'll go ahead and turn this burner off. Got a few seeds on there. Watch out if you have seeds on there. Sometimes they'll pop and they'll, pop on you. You don't want that. So the only other thing going into our garlic, onion, and peppers are these 2 spices. I have cumin seed and coriander seed. Both are super easy to find nowadays, pretty affordable too, but if you cannot find these, you can just add ground cumin or ground coriander to the sauce when you blend it up. So I'm going in with about a tablespoon each of the cumin seed and the coriander seed. Also, really affordable, organic coriander seeds and cumin seeds. You can plant these in pots on your windowsill or in your garden or on your front porch like I do. And the coriander seeds will grow a beautiful cilantro plant, which you can collect more coriander seeds from or have fresh cilantro all year long. Same with the cumin, you can collect the seeds out of there. Super easy to grow, both of them, so give it a try. So I'm just going to cover this in water, pop the lid on, and let it simmer away while the black beans cook. So to make these flatbreads, I'm starting out with about a cup of sourdough starter, which has just been hanging out all morning, getting nice and bubbly. So a few hours it's been sitting out. I started with my sourdough starter out of the refrigerator because that's where I keep it. So if you have a sourdough starter and you're going to use this recipe and you have it room temperature, you probably only need to let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes, get nice and bubbly. But mine has been refrigerated, so I just took it out, about a cup of the starter. I fed it with about 3 tablespoons of flour and 3 tablespoons of water, and just let it sit and hang out all morning, and that's what we're starting with. And let me show you the spices that I'm going to put into these flatbreads. I have about 1.5 teaspoons of pink salt. I have garlic powder and onion powder. And I know you'll hear people say don't put the salt directly in your starter like that, but with these flatbreads it's not going to be an issue. And I have a little bit of green onion powder that I dehydrated from my onions in the garden, and the same with the oregano, about a teaspoon of Mexican oregano. And I have all of this beautiful fresh cilantro, which I'm just going to quickly rough chop, and even some of the stems, some of the more tender stems, can go in the flatbread. And I meant to chop that up before I started this, and I just got distracted. So let me chop this up real quick and put it in here. Okay, so I have my cilantro roughly chopped here, and I'm just going to set that aside while I add my flour. And I just have this big giant bag of flour that I've been working on, and I'm going to add about 3 cups of flour. And these are great to meal prep ahead. This recipe, you don't have to be like super specific or weigh your stuff out. None of that for a flatbread. You can if you want, and I'll write the general recipe and ingredient list down in the comment section. But when you're making flatbreads, you can just kind of wing it. It's not like making a loaf of bread, so don't be intimidated by it. You don't have to do it, you know, perfectly down to the gram or the ounce when you're making just a good flatbread. So don't be intimidated. You know, people have been making bread for millennia without scales and measurements, so don't overcomplicate it is all I'm trying to say. So to this I'm just going to add enough water to make kind of a shaggy dough, just until it just comes together. And when you're winging it, you don't know exactly how much water that's going to be until you put it in there. But I'm guessing with the wetness of the sourdough starter, I'm going to need about a cup or a cup and a half. And that's going to vary depending on, you know, how much starter you start with and how humid it is that day. So I just like to kind of eyeball it until it gets nice and shaggy. So this is kind of what we're going for here. This is about what it should look like. It's just kind of sticking together and coming off the sides. And I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit, just like that, and just pop in my fresh cilantro and just kind of work that in to the dough. And from here, our dough is just going to get covered and sit aside for anywhere from 1 to 2 hours until it just about kind of doubles in size. And again, that will depend on different factors like how warm it is in your kitchen and how humid it is that day. So I'm guessing today 1 to 2 hours, which gives us plenty of time for, you know, other things, cooking the beans for the soup and meal prepping a few other things. So while that was rising, I decided to go ahead and prep up some tofu, which I did by simply cubing up 1 entire block of extra firm tofu, and I added salt, pepper, a little cornstarch, some mushroom powder, and some nutritional yeast. Made sure that was mixed up really well and all of the pieces were nice and coated. And I just put that onto a baking sheet to bake at 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes or until it's nice and crispy on the outside. And this comes out perfect every time. So while my tofu is cooking, I'll just go ahead and prepare my guajillo sauce. And I'll do that by just straining out the peppers, onions, and garlic that have boiled until they're nice and tender. And I'll remove all of the stems that are left from the peppers, and the rest of the pepper can just go straight into a blender cup or a food processor. And I'll also be adding the peeled onion and peeled garlic to the blender or food processor. And what I'll do is I'll just blend it until it is super smooth, and then I will strain it back into the broth that is left over from cooking. And the rest of the onion peel and garlic peel and pepper stems, I'm just going to discard. Man, this kitchen smells amazing. It smells like Abuela's house. It smells so good in here with the beans cooking and the guajillo sauce. Oh, it does smell amazing. And it's getting ready to smell even better when we get our flatbreads in the oven. So they have been rising it's been about an hour and a half or so, and I'm just going to lightly dust my island here, my work surface, with a little bit of flour. I'm just going to flour my hands a little bit and get this dough out. And I'm sorry if I sniffle, y'all. Like I said, I have a cold this week. You know, Having little ones around, and I do work in a healthcare setting, it goes with the territory. One of the reasons why I like to follow a healthy diet is, kind of give my immune system a little bit of a boost, so if I do get a little cold like this, it won't be too bad. Okay, so just going to knead this just a couple times to get it nice and workable. Looks good. Oh, it smells amazing too. It smells really good. And like I said, with flatbread, you don't really have to be like super picky about it, super finicky. I'm just going to roll this out into like a little log here so I can get about 8 even little flatbreads, and just start in the middle, cut there, cut there, cut there, and that's not even at all, but that's okay. So these 2 fat ones in the middle, I'm just going to cut in half, and that looks a little bit more even. And I'll just set them aside, put a little flour here. Just set those aside and start rolling. I'm just going to kind of roll this into a little ball, squeezing with my hands like that. And with a flatbread, again, you don't have to make sure it's perfectly round or anything. So I'm just going to give it a quick roll out. And I'm just going to work through all of these, and I'm going to put them on a parchment-lined baking tray and bake them in the oven. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. Now, if you wanted to, you could brush these with a little bit of olive oil or vegan butter, but I'm going to keep them oil-free. And like I said, I like to meal prep these, so I like to keep them oil-free and just pop the extras in the freezer. And if you want a little vegan butter or olive oil on it when you go to have your meal, that's when I would add it, if I add it. Or if Tony wants that, he can put that on there. That's my husband, by the way. My flatbreads are out of the oven. They look amazing. I cannot wait to try them. And I have everything ready to put my soup together. Have all of my ingredients. I have the rest of my onion that didn't go into making the guajillo sauce. I'm just going to water saute really quickly. Just a little bit of water in the pan to get those nice and softened up. And you'll see, like, once you have all of your ingredients together, this soup comes together so quickly. So if you did not want to go through the trouble of preparing all the ingredients homemade, you could certainly just use all canned ingredients for this. You could use canned black beans, and in place of the guajillo sauce, you could just use enchilada sauce with a little bit of vegetable stock or tomato paste. So what else I have going in here besides the beans and guajillo sauce? I have 1 par-cooked cut up white potato. I like to have those on hand, meal prepped too. And 1 can of white hominy. Hominy is what's going to give this its traditional pozole flavor too. That's pretty traditional in a lot of Mexican soups that you'll see. So just give these a stir just till they're nice and soft. And I have 1 vegetable bouillon cube. This one I will link in the description box below. It is called Not Beef. It's more of a savory, umami style vegetable bouillon. If you don't have that, you could use a little bit of the Better Than bouillon or just any vegetable stock that you like. You could also put a little bit of tomato paste in. I prefer, I guess I'm on the fence either way. You could put it in or you could leave it out. That's how I feel about the tomato paste in the soup. Some people like to put it in and some people don't. So I'm just going to go in with my guajillo sauce, all of it. I did save a little bit out for Tony to have on his burritos. So that is going all in. Just going to bring this back up to a simmer. And I'm going in with my beans. And this is about 2 cups of beans with about 1 cup of the bean cooking liquid. In with that. This is going to be so good. In with my hominy. I like it when it's this easy. Oh, it smells good. And in with my potato. So I'm just going to turn my heat up here and bring it up to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer just so everything can soak up all of that good guajillo sauce. Okay, so it's been simmering away for, I don't know, about 10 or 15 minutes. Looks perfect and it smells amazing and I can't wait anymore. I'm going to plate myself up a bowl, make sure I get all of that goodness in there and plenty of broth. This broth is soul healing. It's so good. It's so good. All right, let me show you what I like to put on top of this. Right when I'm ready to serve it, I'm going to hit it with just a squeeze of lime, a little bit of acidity in there, a few chopped red onions. You could also use pickled onions or radishes would also be really good. And a few sprigs of fresh cilantro. I could have cleaned up my area to do that a little better, but this is going to be good. I'm going to sit down and enjoy this lovely bowl of soup. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching so much. Let me know what your favorite soup is when you're feeling a little bit under the weather. Let me know. As always, I appreciate you guys watching so much. Thanks for tuning in to my channel. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Also, feel free to share this recipe with somebody who you think might enjoy it. I'll see you next time. Bye!